Good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're joining us, welcome back to the Stoner Car Care YouTube channel. When was the last time you cleaned your engine bay? I'm sure your mechanic could tell us. If you have cleaned it recently, let us know down in the comments below how it turned out for you. It seems to be a common misconception that your vehicle is going to be a total loss if you don't do it just quite right, and I promise you, it's not that intimidating. Today we're working on a Mercedes CLA 250, and like a lot of late model vehicles these days, we've got our work cut out for us because you have all this plastic covering up a lot of the crucial components that we don't want to be getting wet. You can see this one's got quite a bit of dust on it, so let's jump in and see what we can do about getting it cleaned up. So a good place to start would be with either a vacuum, an air compressor, or even a leaf blower, just to try and get out the biggest bits like leaves and dust and even some of these pollen spots all up in here in the cowl. So we're gonna go through vacuuming out the best we can, and then we'll get down to getting it wet. So there's a few things you want to watch out for when you're spraying down this vehicle and make sure you're staying safe in the engine bay. And it's going to be the intake system and the electrical system. The intake system is pretty self-explanatory. You want to look for where your air intake would be, and on this one, luckily, it's nice and covered up, so we don't have really anything to worry about there. And as far as the electrical system goes, you really want to make sure you're watching out for the battery, anything for like the ECU, any of the coil packs on top of the engine. If it's an older vehicle, maybe the distributor cap. Keep in mind that you want to make sure those are fully functioning and in proper order, because like for instance on this vehicle, battery's nice and covered up. We really don't have too much to worry about, so we're not gonna pull that out today. But let's say this case had a crack in it and it was exposing it to water, then maybe we would consider pulling that out just to be extra safe. This vehicle again has this one covered up for the coil packs. With all that, we don't have to really worry about that too much, but if those were exposed, again, cover those. Same goes for the alternator. If you really wanna be careful, cover those up with a plastic bag or whatever means you have, just to make sure that you don't have to be overthinking that when you're spraying it with a pressure washer. So typically at this stage, we're gonna wanna cut through all the grease, grime, everything with a nice chemical. That way it's gonna require less pressure from the pressure washer. Today we're using a high alkaline cleaner like Stoner's all-purpose cleaner. It's a pH of 12, so it should have no problems cutting through any of the dirt and grime and grease. Turn that on. Now keep in mind, of course we're doing the engine bay here, but you also want to do the underside of the hood. We did vacuum this heat shield pretty well just to get all the surface dirt off of it. So we're not really going to focus on that too much. We're going to try and keep that as dry as we can. But we definitely want to get this foaming all-purpose cleaner all up on the painted surfaces of the vehicle. So we're going to cover all those. That way we can start breaking down any of the grease, grime, anything like that. So while we're letting this dwell for about 3 minutes or so, I can talk to you about a little bit about the tools that are gonna make the job easier. Now you can get it done with pretty much any size brush, but if you really want to get in the nooks and crannies, it's good to have a couple different sizes. If you have a big body brush like this, it's gonna help us getting underneath the hood. This is more like a wheel tire body brush, kind of a wheel well brush to be used. That's good for some of the like smaller surfaces where you really don't want a big handle. We have actually our tire brush for getting some of the smaller nooks and crannies. You also have even the small detail brush we use for lug nuts we're going to use to even get in the tinier spots. And then if you want to get down in next to the engine in spots, this wheel brush works really well for that. To kind of go in and be able to get into any spots you want to without getting in with one of these. All right, now that we've let this marinate a bit, I'm going to put a little bit of the all-purpose cleaner on the brush here just for some lubrication. Maybe apply a little bit more onto the spot we're going to do. And we're going to start with the hood first because we want to be able to get this clean. That way it's not dripping any of that dirty area back down onto a clean surface. So we'll start up top here. No real magic to this, just cover the surface area with the brush. We're hoping that the chemical is going to be doing most of the cleaning here for you, but the brush is just going to make sure we're agitating and exposing any area to the cleaner. So we get down into all these little nooks and crannies with this detail brush here. Spots that's a little tougher to reach with the bigger brushes. When you're using a good degreaser like this, you really don't have to be scrubbing too hard with it because the chemical's going in and doing a lot of the work for you. But it is good to go in and agitate, make sure the chemical's exposed to every surface. All right, now where the little bit of the magic lies is how you're using this pressure washer. So if you can imagine, if you held the pressure washer up to your hand, it would hurt because there's a lot of pressure coming out of there. This is set at 1,000 PSI, but you still wouldn't recommend aiming it directly at a lot of the components. So imagine if you pull it away from your hand, it really doesn't hurt too much. It's doing the same thing to a lot of those components. We did a lot of the heavy lifting. You have it in that all-purpose cleaner and then doing some agitation with the brush. So really all we're doing here is rinsing it off with the pressure washer. We're gonna start up top and work our way to the bottom. So now we're gonna dry off the engine just so we can go and treat it with a nice protectant. Now we're gonna try and dry the best we can with a microfiber just to get the heaviest of moisture off, but then we'll use a blower just to get in every little nook and cranny. We don't wanna be blowing a big majority of the moisture down into areas where it shouldn't be, so it's kind of a good idea just to get the heaviest stuff off with the microfiber. Now we're gonna blow off any of the nooks and crannies with the air blower. Now that we got all the plastics and trim just about all dried up perfectly, we're gonna protect all of that with a trim shine here. So it's an aerosol. All you gotta do is just spray where you'd like it to be applied at. Doesn't get much simpler than this. And then for these larger areas, I usually like to knock it down a little less shiny by wiping it down with a dry microfiber afterwards. But first we're gonna apply it, give it a second to soak in there, protect all those surfaces. You notice up here by the cowl, I put a couple of microfibers up on my windshield just so I'm not getting any overspray, save myself a little bit of time. It does have a nice precise spray pattern here, but regardless of spraying up there on the windshield, you're gonna end up getting some of this on there, so save yourself the hassle. If you didn't wanna have to do this again, we do sell Trim Shine ceramic that has a 5-year coating. You go through and apply the ceramic over here, and it'll be the last time you're doing it for 5 years. That's pretty convenient, but nothing gets more convenient than just spraying the aerosol. If you like a high shine, you can leave it just like that, but if you want to knock that down to more of a matte finish, you just come through, level it out with a microfiber. We'll link the products that we used today in the description below. Thanks for watching, and let us know in the comments below how it went for you.